Hello and welcome to this week's video tutorial with the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup, which takes us to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. I'll of course be looking at a lap from Rens Broekman at this tricky layout consisting of many chicanes and unforgivingly close walls. So he's added a good deal more rear wing this week, as the car happens to be very efficient with the higher wing settings despite the extra understeer this brings. As usual, the lap is driven in default afternoon weather to match the official series, and I'll play the lap through first in full before then going into further analysis. Okay, so that was 1 minute 36.680. So from the list of data packs on the VRS app, we're just going to choose the Porsche, as driven of course by Rens Broekman. We're going to select week 3, where we have access to the driving data, the replay and the setup, of course in session details where you can see all the stint information. We're going to click on Learn Track, which will load up the video analyzer. I'm just going to pause this, and just to summarize, VRS splits up the lap into individual sectors, each with a steering trace, speed trace and brake and throttle trace, along with some inputs. So what we're going to do is select sector 1, which is always the run from the start finish line to the braking zone for turn 1, and the first thing that we'll notice is the positioning of the car is fairly far over to the left hand side as we cross over the start finish line, and that's to open up the line into the braking zone for turn 1. So if we just take it back to cockpit view and play it through, obviously at this point you want to be thinking about your braking point, which is going to be, these markers are quite difficult to see, but there is a 3 there. I tend to use this tarmac patch just off to the right hand side here, just before there. So if we go to sector 2 now, braking in a straight line roughly, a good amount before that tarmac area in fact, and then as the speed comes down we bleed off as we turn in, just teasing the brakes as we come over this curb. And we'll just switch to chase view because I want to show you the exact car positioning here. So you want to be onto this curb, but notice that Rens does not drop his wheels over the curb, and you'll tend to find if you do drop your wheels off to the inside there, the car will be hooked over to the left hand side, which you don't want. So we'll just switch back to cockpit view and play it through. Notice how Rens opens up the car and brakes hard again for the right hander. And that's because you can't afford to carry too much speed into here. It's quite a long corner, so you really want to be hugging the inside curb most of the way round, and you can see that that's allowed to Rens to pick up the throttle fairly early as well as hugging the inside and getting good rotation. So he's got a very, very tight exit there. We'll just show you that from chase. So he's exited quite close to that curb. Play it through, running down towards the first chicane now. And your braking zone is going to be the 2 marker here on the left hand side. Take it to sector 3. So braking nice and evenly, and then turning in and bleeding off. And in terms of line, you're going to be wanting to use a lot of this curb and a lot of the second curb as well. So you notice that Rens hasn't come off the brakes entirely. That's to keep the car rotating, keep the front end loaded up. So we'll just switch to chase view so I can show you exactly how much curb he's using. Quite a lot there. And then again through the second curb, which we need to go to sector 4 for that. Notice that Rens has already picked up the throttle. We'll just jump back to that. So you want to be picking up the throttle as you leave the first curb, and then we go to sector 4, and then over the second curb you want to be feathering the throttle and then picking it up nice and progressively. So in terms of the amount of curb used, again, it's a lot, and you really need to be cautious with the throttle and the steering. You can actually see a small correction for oversteer in the steering trace up here, and that'll allow you to carry a decent amount of exit speed. And of course you'll be required to use all of the track on the exit, which will mean that you'll get quite close to this wall, which is fine. Aiming for the left hand curb as you exit, just run your wheels up over that before aiming for the inside wall, where Rens is going to have a full lift, which will start off sector 5, and the car tends to understeer when you lift out of the throttle, which is fine. So he's steering quite aggressively towards the wall at this point, anticipating that the car will understeer, and then picks up the throttle quite aggressively, but doesn't actually reach full throttle until the car's nice and straight. So then exiting, bringing the car over to the right hand side for the braking for turn 6. We'll just go back to the moment where Rens hits the brakes. In terms of a reference, there is the orange Armco ending on the left here. You want to be braking just after you pass there. And notice how Rens is aimed to the outside of 6 on the brakes, and has quite a late turn in. So this is quite important. Just bleeding off again as he turns in, but holding quite a lot of brake pressure this time. It has a slight lock up, but it's very important that you hook up with a late apex here, which will open up the next right-hander, which is more important. So just see that hooking up on this curb. Probably want to use a little bit more curb if possible, and then picking up the throttle quite progressively in second gear. Obviously there's a lot of torque at the wheels in that gear. We'll just go to sector 6, where Rens is feathering out of the throttle on this curb on the right hand side, and applies the throttle very progressively, so as to not unsettle the car and get a bad exit. That's nice, puts the power down well, leaves the car out towards the wall, approaching the next chicane. Obviously you want to be thinking about your braking point at this moment, which is going to be this 3 marker. Just take it through to sector 7. So yeah, braking just around the 3 marker, and you want to turn in fairly early here, so just about where the 1 appears, and then bleed off. And it's very important that you maximize your speed through here by taking lots of the first curb. So you see that Rens gets properly on top of that one, but takes, well, he completely misses the second one. And I'm talking of course about the sausage curbs, the white ones, which are much taller than the traditional red and white. So quite careful with the throttle on the exit. The car gets slightly unsettled coming off that curb, and then puts the power down. We'll just go to sector 8, and again gets very close to this second curb on the second apex, but doesn't actually make contact with it. You can make contact with it, but you'll need to feather even more out of the throttle than Rens does here. Otherwise you'll be out of shape and potentially in this wall on the exit. So that's a nice exit, puts the power down well again, and obviously heading now towards the slowest corner on the circuit, the hairpin, which will go to sector 9. Your braking for this is going to be at this 3 marker. We'll just take it to the cockpit view there, or a good amount before this white wall starts on the left hand side, and braking in a straight line, of course, keeping the car out wide, hugging the left hand edge of the circuit before turning in reasonably late and really slowing the car down a lot. So the apex speed here is very slow, and that's because you really want the car to rotate so you can get on the power nice and early. In terms of gearing, you could use first gear, but you'll probably struggle to put the power down on the exit, but you might get slightly better rotation in first gear. So we just play it through. So I'll just show you that for chase view. So Rens is actually onto the curb here, which is nice. You don't want to be taking more curb than that. And then on the exit, we'll keep it external here. The track opens up before then coming over to the right hand side, so take advantage of that and open the car up with the steering, which will allow you to get to full throttle a little bit sooner. I'll just speed it up to normal speed now. Approaching the final chicane, where there's going to be a bridge, which will be our braking point. Just slow it down and mute it. So sector 10, which is similar to the previous chicane in that you'll want to take lots of the first curb up onto that white sausage curb, but try and avoid the second one, otherwise you'll probably end up in the Wall of Champions. So I just want to show you Rens's brake trace here, because initially he brakes hard but then starts to bleed off before then going back on. So I suspect what happened is he's slightly too early and has realised it straight away and has come off the brakes to catch up to where he should be. So we'll just play that through. That's good awareness to be able to do that, obviously. And then finally turning in and bleeding off slightly, and aiming, like I said earlier, for this first sausage curb. So you have to turn in fairly early to do that. And flying up over there, and then as the car lands, avoiding the second one. That's very important. And obviously hesitating just in anticipation of that before the car settles down for the exit, and then reaching full throttle and just about staying within the wall on the exit. And then of course bringing the car gradually over to the left hand side in anticipation for braking for turn 1. You can find all setups, replays and telemetry for your own use and analysis on virtualracingschool.com, where you can also book one-on-one tuition with top drivers from the likes of Coanda SimSport. Good luck for this week, and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.